Hey everyone, welcome to another video on DBT tutorial, and this is going to be a very interesting video on DBT snapshot, and we'll see like how to use DBT snapshot for implementing SCD type 2 tables. So first let's understand what is a DBT snapshot. So just a formal definition of it, a DBT snapshot is a model that tracks and stores changes to a dataset over time. It creates a version history of each row of data, which can be queried to access historical data. So in data warehousing or data modeling, it's very important that you understand what's happening over the time on your data sets. So suppose you have a employee table data set and you would like to understand whenever there is a change happening on any particular column, you want to keep the history of all the records. So this is why DBT snapshot helps you to implement that, and one of the most popular technique to do that is SCD type 2 operation. So let's first understand what is this DBT SCD type 2. So here I have represented a employee table which has few columns, and I want to have a track of records whenever there is change happening on this particular table. Now in SCD type 2, whenever we are tracking something, we add few columns here. So we add some columns like valid from and valid to. What does it represent? It represent, so if we have some valid from and valid to, so it represent, okay, this particular record so which is for John is valid from this particular date to this date, and this date is very far in future. That means that this is the current record. So whenever we have any changes on this, we'll do changes on valid from and valid to. Let's see how does it do. So whenever there is a change happening, we'll see like how in SCD type 2 we represent the records. Now let's think that this is a delta incremental data that is coming up. So if you see that we have some changes for employee 1. So employee 1 address change from ST to ST1, and this has been changed on 3 to 20, right, on the next day. Similarly for Jane, the address has changed on 20. But this is a new record. If you see that Sophia is a new record and this has been valid from this particular date. So this valid from is nothing but you can think about this is a load date. Whenever you're loading the data, like this is the date that is coming up. In SCD type 2, we have to keep a record for all John, Jane and Sophia. Now let's see how we do that. So if you see that John has some old address that has been valid from 19 to 20. Why this is 20? Because this data has come on 20. So what we do is like we close this particular record. Now what we meant is like, okay, this particular person has been living in this particular address from 19 to 20. Okay, but there will be one more record will be added. If you see that this record has been added and the valid from is 20. So from 20 to infinity, it means infinity, like until there is any more change. So it has been valid. So similarly for Jane also, this particular record has been closed and one more record has been added, right? But for Sophia, there were no previous record, so it's a new record, so that record has been added, right? So there are different techniques to have the valid to. Some people use like a few very far future date, or you can also have null in this place. That means that that particular record is a valid record and that's a current record, right? So this is the whole concept of SCD type 2, and we'll see now how we implement this in DBT snapshot. So to do this, what we're gonna need is we're gonna need some data. So first we are creating an employee table. Like this is very similar schema that we have seen in the PPT, and we are adding a received date. Received date means when that particular record has came, right? So let's create this table first. And what we are doing is we'll be inserting some values. So we are inserting 10 record. 10 are like very unique records. So this employee ID is the primary key. So we'll have this, and all the data have been received on 19. So this is 10 records that we are adding. Okay, now let's go to our DBT project. And if you have seen that, just for the recap, this is how you create the sources. So you define what's the source, where is the database, where is the schema, and what's the table that you are loading, right? Similarly, what we do is we also create a model. So we will basically create an incremental model, because whenever there is a change in the base table, we want to get only the latest record, right? So this is an incremental model. We are selecting data from the source, and where receive date is greater than maximum receive date, right? So just to explain this, so if you see that if I am loading the data now, so this is my receive date, but in the next time whenever I am loading it, I'll be calculating the maximum date, and whatever data that have come after that date will be loading that. So that's why this incremental logic is coming into picture, right? So this is nothing but this is the staging table that we need to create to be able to get the data from source table as an incremental data. Okay, we know how to run that, so we have to run dbt run. Now if you see dbt run has successfully completed, and we see that our staging table have been created. Now let's see the staging table, and this is the staging table that have been created. This will be the same data that we see, right? So whatever data that we have been inserted on the employee table, the same data has come. So there are like 10 records. Now let's see like how to create the snapshot for this table. Now let's go back to our DBT project, and the snapshot that we create should be on the snapshot folder that has been created, right? So this is the snapshot model that we'll be creating. Now to do that, you start your block with snapshot, and you provide the snapshot name that you want to create. So I am naming this as employee details history, because we are keeping a track of employee details. Then you define the config. So you define the where this particular table should be resided. So that should go into target schema, that is mart. We are creating a mart schema, and the strategy is timestamp. Why the strategy is timestamp? Because on the receive date, we are calculating if this is a valid open records or it is a closed record. So we are defining the strategy as timestamp. Then we defined what's the unique key. So for this particular table, employee ID is unique key, and we define what's the updated at. This updated at is being used because whenever we are closing this particular record, right, we have to define what is the updated date, and this date is nothing but is coming from receive date. So on the next batch, whenever the data is coming, this is the receive date, and we are just defining that if there are any hard deletes, we are invalidating those hard deletes here. Then we define a CT. So we define from where my data should come, and if you see that we are referencing the staging table that we have just created, and we are just selecting the employee details, and we are just ending the snapshot. So this is all you need to define your snapshot table. So if you see that just defining some config, you'll be able to create the snapshot of this table. To create it, there's a different command. It's not dbt run. You have to do dbt snapshot to create the snapshot table. Okay, so this has been successfully run, and we see that we have created a snapshot on the mart schema. So let's go back to Snowflake. So we have selected the data from that particular mart schema, and this is the snapshot table that we have created. And if you see that it has created, these are the original column that we had, and this is the SCD ID that DBT create. This is to just create the hash of your primary key so that it can do a match, right? And similarly, it has a created a DBT updated at, and this is the valid from and valid to. If you see that DBT creates all the valid to as null for all the new records, right? So in our PPT example, we have seen as 1999 12/31 as a date, but here DBT can define DBT valid to as null. That means that these are all open records, right? These are the current records. Okay. Now to understand like how DBT like if we have the incremental data, how DBT handles that. Now to show that, let's insert some new records. So if you see that, what we are doing is for John, which is an existing record, we are updating some address for that, right? So let's see that we are updating this address and we are updating this address, and we are mentioning that this data have been inserted on 9 and 9. So this is the greater than this particular date, right? So these are two new records that we are inserting. So let's insert this record. Let's insert this record as well. Now let's run our staging table first. So we'll go back to our DBT and we'll run DBT run. So we have run the DBT run. What it will do is, like we have already mentioned our incremental model. So it will just get the latest data and it will insert into the staging table. Now what we can do is we can run the DBT snapshot. Okay, our DBT snapshot has run, and now we can check the data again. So if you see that for employee 1, the address has changed. So what we did was we have closed that particular record, so whatever old address that we had, and we have inserted a new record, right? So this is the latest record. So, and if you see that this is valid from 9 to 9, and the same has been updated as valid to for the old record. Similarly, it happened with Jane, right? So the older record have been closed and the new record have been inserted, right? And the other stuff will remain the same because there are no changes for other records, right? So if you see that how it is so easy with DBT snapshot to implement SCD type 2. So you just have to define your configuration in the snapshot and DBT takes care of it. So just for a bonus point, what you can do is, just to understand how DBT is doing that, so you can go to target and you can go to run and you can see the snapshot that it's create. So internal is nothing but it's just a merge operation, right? So every data warehouse or every database has some merge operation that you create. So what it is doing, it is doing a merge onto a destination using your staging table on SCD ID. So this is nothing but this is a hash that we create on the primary key. When there is a match, it will update the valid to, and if there is not match, it will insert the data. So we don't have to worry about writing this merge statement. All we have to worry about just writing the configuration, like what's the unique key, or what's the updated at, and DBT takes care of it, right? So with this, I think I'm done with today's video, and if you like the video, just give it a like, and if you have any question, just give a comment on this video, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, do subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much. See you in the next video.